just going to take a minute to explain that there's a lot of videos in the presentation, and we're going to look at some common functions and some not so common functions in Excel. But we're going to go through them at a rather quick pace. So the idea of the presentation is not to be able to, without aid, go through and perform these procedures. It's more to kind of aid in identifying some of the capabilities within Excel and try to have some thought process of how you can use these in your day-to-day activities to make your processes more efficient within Excel. So really what we want to do is we're going to provide a link to this presentation after the event. You can go ahead and download it then. You can play back through the videos and pause through them to kind of work through some of the steps if necessary, if you're not familiar with some of the functionality there, just to make it easier to follow along. Also, you know, you can obviously Google, you know, some of these functions or processes and find videos or in-depth demonstration steps on how to use this functionality. So I just want to caution you, it's not intended for you to follow 100% of how to do every single thing by the time you're done with the presentation, but just, again, to show you what Excel is capable of and try to implement it into your circumstances. So the first thing that we're going to look at is the Vlookup and index max function. So it's important to know within Excel when you should be using a Vlookup versus an index match. So the Vlookup is best used for a one-on-one relationship, meaning the thing that you're trying to match has one instance in the one table and one instance in another. So we'll see kind of what that means in our example as we go through. Also, it's probably best if you don't intend to leave this as a live formula within your workbook. So if you want a live formula, probably the best thing to do then is go to the index match function. Now that's a little bit more complicated because it's two Excel functions nested together, so that it's a little bit more complicated to put together, but it has some advantages of if the spreadsheet's modified, some of those cell references are maintained better and it's better going forward. So the last thing on here is the Vlookup. And I had a coworker this week say that their computer was updated before mine and they actually had access to this Vlookup function. I still don't have it on my computer, but very soon. And I'm very excited about that because it basically will mirror the index match, but be all within one function rather than the nesting of the functions. So we're going to get started here just looking at the Vlookup. Now these are recorded and the audio should play, but if you have any difficulties hearing the audio as they go through, just mention that in the chat box and we'll try to adjust, or you can adjust your volume on your computer. And then I want my
column B to be constant as I copy the formula across. So I'm going to put a $sign in there to make that a constant reference. And the table array, so come over here, and I want to start with the column with that constant in it. So I'm going to start with column B, and I'm just going to highlight all that information. And I'm going to hit F4 to make those constants, because I want that a constant within my entire formula. I'll come back here. So then for the street is in the second column from my selection, so in column C. So my selection started with B, so that's the second. So I'm going to put in my column index as a 2 within that. Get rid of the address there. And then if I want an exact match in this instance, I definitely want an exact match. I'll type in false to complete my formula. So there, now I'm pulling in the street for that individual from that other table. Now I'm just going to copy this across here, and all I have to do is take and change what column I want. So that's in my third column, my state's in my fourth column, so I'm just changing that variable within the formula, and this is in the fifth column. So I'm just going to take that. I got it highlighted, the little box at the bottom. I just want to double click on that. It copies it all the way down through. I'm going to copy and paste value over that to make it a constant instead of a formula. And there I have my combined data all in one table. Here we're going to use Vlookup. Now we're going to use the index match functions to do the same thing that we just did with the Vlookup. So first of all, we're going to put in our index array, which is basically the data that we want to look up. So in this instance, we're going to look up the street values. We can just come over here, put that reference in there for that column, and then we'll start our match formula. Now we're going to have our array be our social security number. That's what we want to match in both sets of data. We're going to make this cell reference an absolute reference by pushing F4. And we're going to come over to our source data again and grab our reference over here, which again, it's going to be our social security number. I'm going to hit F4 there to make that an absolute reference. And then we just want to say that this should be an exact match. So we type in the 0 that's indicated down below here. And then we're going to just close our match formula and our index and hit enter. And then we're going to copy that across our cells, double click the corner, and there we have all our data pulled over using the index match function.
All right, next we're going to look at Powerpivot. Really, with the Powerpivot, you can easily combine multiple data tables similar to what we did, but with here, you can combine tables with a one-to-one match, like we saw here in our previous examples, where the address file and the date of birth, date of hire file both only had one instance of that employee in here. Here, at least one of the data tables is going to have multiple references. And in our example, we're going to look at one that has the yearly payroll amounts for people, so that multiple instance for each of the employees within that. And then we'll kind of go through just the process of pulling that together and summarizing it.
Here we're going to look at how you can use Powerpivot to combine different tables with related data into one consolidated table. I'm using census information in our example here because this might be something that you've manually had to do in the past. The first thing you want to do is make sure you have the Powerpivot within your ribbons available. So if that's not currently showing up, easy way to get that is just to go to your data tab and click on the green button within your data tools, get Powerpivot. So once you click on that, that will activate the Powerpivot within your ribbons. So once we have that, we just go into that ribbon and there should be a green button here, Manage. This is where we're going to select the data that we were going to use for our Powerpivot. From there, we're just going to go here and select our data from other sources button because our data is in Excel that we're going to use here. And then we'll scroll down here to the Excel option and hit Next. Here we just have to browse for the information that we're going to use. So here we're going to pull in our employee list. This does have a header row in there, so we want to make sure that that's checked so it identifies the header row. We're going to select the tabs within that file here. I'm going to pull in both files. It's automatically giving it a friendly name, so that's good. I can just hit Finish. So those are imported. Now the other information that I'm going to use is some payroll information. So I'm going to click this again, go into Excel, browse from my payroll information. Here I have employee payroll. This again has a header row that I wanted to identify. And then I'm just going to give this a friendly name of payroll. Finish and close. So I got all my information now currently loaded. My next step is just to go in from this information, and I want to get it to take the common item within each of these files so that I can identify how I want to merge this information together. So all my files here within this have a social security number listed. So here it's in column 2, same here, and with the third as well. Now this data for the payroll is all my employees for every pay period throughout the whole year. So what I want to do is I want to consolidate all this information into one nice clean file that I can use for my census information for the year. So I'm going to go ahead and click this diagram view. This is a clean way to be able to link what's common within the file. So I'm going to go from my payroll information because that has numerous items of that variable, that social security number for my employees, because it has an entry for each pay period for each employee. So you always want to start with the one with the most and go to the file where it's in there only one time. So within my list of employees, which has my date of birth and date of hire that I want to pull into my master file, and then the address files as well. So I'm going to click the social security number and I'm going to drag it and connect it. And you can see the bar as well as the green highlight there. And I'm just going to drop it there. And you can see the asterisk here means that this has numerous entries relating to that social security number by individual there, versus this only has one per individual. So that's the one that's indicated there. So I'm going to do the same thing with the address files as well. I'm going to click that over there. Again, you see the asterisk versus the one that's pulling over there. Now that I built those relationships, I can go in and create my pivot table. So I'm going to do a pivot table just from this menu here. And I'm going to keep this in my existing workbook because this is a blank workbook. Just go ahead and click OK. And really, I can put this anywhere. I could have moved it up into A1 if I wanted to. But from here, then, I can choose the data I want to summarize within my census file that I'm working on. So I'm going to start with the payroll information because that's going to be the most prevalent information that I want to summarize. So from here, I'm going to put the name and social security number of each of my employees, and then I'm going to take the pay and the retirement amounts, and it's going to summarize for the entire year what those amounts were. And then I'll go up again in my lists, and here I want to pull in my different information for the date of birth and date of hire for each employee. So I'm just going to go ahead and drag that information I want down into my rows here. So I'm going to put the date of birth, date of hire in there. You can kind of see it as it's building here on the left, that information is populating down there. And then finally, I want to just pull in some address information. So I'm going to take the city, the street, city, state, and zip code for each of the employees. Okay, I went ahead and rearranged that kind of in the order that I wanted it to be within my table here. So all the information's here. I can kind of click out of here. I pulled everything I wanted to be in here. So right now, the format of this isn't really conducive to really reviewing or submitting this as a census file. But if you go into the design tab within the report layout, you can then show this in a tabular format. So there, this is probably more or less what you would want to review the data in a nice flat table. And to go beyond that, you can then as well kind of maybe get rid of some of the arrows and buttons within there, and basically then just could copy and paste this information into another file to get the information out of the pivot table. Again, you can kind of format some of the dollar amounts so they're a little bit easier to read. And you can also, if we went back to the original source data, kind of compare the totals and verify that, yes, the total payroll for the year was this, the total retirement amounts totaled this $13,416. So we verify that everything flowed correctly over into our pivot table, and all the information from the three different files that we had, or tabs, is now concise into one table. As we were working through some of these files, you can see that I was using some of the buttons that I have here on my quick access toolbar. So I kind of just wanted to go through that in case anybody wasn't sure how to set that up or why I have that there. So way back when Microsoft introduced the ribbons, I was old school. I didn't have those. We had the drop-down menus and some buttons and things, and so I always found it difficult to find the functions that we wanted to use within those different ribbons. So there's an option within Excel to create a quick access toolbar that you can put some of your more used functions buttons within there on that toolbar so that it's easier for you to use and find and quicker. So in order to do that, you really just have to go into File and then Options, and then there's the Quick Access Toolbar. So here, this is my Quick Access Toolbar that I have set up, and basically then you can go through either the ribbons, or you can even do all commands and find things that you're going to use like every day, most often, and then put them on your Quick Access Toolbar so that they display and you're able to find them easier. And then the other thing just to highlight is down here, the Show Quick Access Toolbar below the ribbon. So initially, if that's not checked, it will be above your tabs here, your file, home, insert. So I like to have it displayed down here. That's just a matter of preference, but that's what that would do. And then I just, once I have everything I want selected in there, and it's basically as easy as going in here and saying, oh, I want that added. I'm going to click that. That's already in there. You can see it's right here in my menu. If I want to move that to a different area, just go up and down arrows to do that. And once you have that set up, you know, if others in your organization like what you have selected here, you have the option to import and export that. So I can export my Quick Access toolbar and then send it to a colleague, and then they can import it into their computer so that you don't have to go through the mechanics of setting that up over and over again if you like that same format and want to have it across your organization on computers that you use. So that's the Quick Access Toolbar. Hopefully that's helpful. Now we're going to just look at a feature within Microsoft, and this works in Word and Excel and even Adobe. It's a feature within Windows that you can split a file into multiple windows that you can either then have it on a different screen or side by side to compare information. Here we're going to look at Excel, and so you can review different tabs at the same time. However, like in Word or Adobe, you could look at different pages at the same time within those files. So really all you have to do is go into your View ribbon and do the new window here. So now it opened up this employee list XLS-2. I'm just going to go in here and arrange it vertically here so we can see side by side now. Now here, that's the same information on the same tab, but on this one I can go ahead and select the address, which then doesn't have the date of birth or date of hire within it. So this would be a good way then to check what we did earlier with the Vlookup to make sure that the file is pulling the correct information. So we'll look at Heidi here as at 984 Long-Term Lane. We come over to Heidi here, that's the information that's pulling. So that's a check there. So, and you can see this is version -1 and version -2, but it doesn't matter if you want to edit information in one and then, you know, over here we can put information in this side as well. It doesn't matter, you can edit both versions of this. It will save as you do a save, and once you close out of the one, it will go back to the normal just employee list here. As you can see, we have that change and that change that was saved within that file then.
Next, we're going to just take a quick look at some data cleanup tips. The example that we have is a QuickBooks GL detail, but some of the same functions and capabilities can be used with any kind of file. So that's more the key in viewing this.
Here, this is a QuickBooks GL that was downloaded from the system, and as it downloads, it's not user-friendly in Excel to as a flat table or be able to run a pivot table or anything, just because there's a lot of blank lines and different things. So I'm just going to go through and show you some techniques on how to clean this up to make it more useful and be able to run some pivot tables or other data analytics on it in Excel. So even if you don't use QuickBooks, these same techniques will help you clean up other types of files as well. So here QuickBooks has put the account numbers in columns B through D. You kind of know where it stops, where that wide column is, and it always starts in column B. So I'm just going to go ahead and select that information here, and then I'm going to go ahead and paste it into a new workbook here. So from there, I'm just going to go ahead and highlight information in column A and go to select, go to special, and I'm going to ask it to select everything that's blank. So then I'm just going to click on there and say delete and shift cells left. So basically from 3 columns, now my third column is completely blank. Now I just have information in columns A and B, and you can see there's 4 items left in column B. So I'm just going to go ahead and perform that one more time. Go up here, go to special, blanks, go ahead and delete and shift the cells left. Now you can see there's nothing in column B, everything is in column A. So I'm going to go ahead and select this one last time here. And what I want to do is I want to copy all the account numbers so that they're on each line item of the detail. So I'm going to go to my special again and do my blanks, and I'm going to change this from text to general, and then I'm going to go equals, and I'm going to the cell above, and then I'm going to do a control enter, and what that does is it's going to copy that same formula down throughout all those selected cells that I had. So if you scroll down through there, you can see now it has that value from the cell above it for any of those empty cells. So once I have done that, I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste value that, and then I'm going to copy again, and I'm going to come over here to my original workbook, and I'm going to just copy and paste that into I'm just going to copy that into column A here, and then I'll just delete all these extra columns. So I'm going to go ahead now and get rid of some of the empty columns in between here, because again, they're not necessary and will break some of the information that I want to do within Excel. So I'm also going to get rid of the balance column because I don't need that. So the next thing I want to do is kind of just get rid of these empty rows. So basically here, anything without a date is like an empty row that I don't need. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight just the date column. Again, go to special, I'm going to select my blanks, And then I'm just going to delete those sheet rows. So now I'm going to add a column over here for the amount. So I'm going to create a formula plus that column minus the credit column. And then I'm going to basically copy that down by double clicking on that block at the bottom. So then I'm just going to copy, paste value over that because I want it to be no longer a formula. We'll do a little formatting here, get our amount, and this is our account, format that. So the idea here too is this is a GL, everything should zero out in my debits and credits. They do. I'm pretty confident that everything converted over okay. I can go ahead, I can filter this, I can turn it into a table now, I can run a pivot table, different things off of this data now that it's flattened out.